Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allison. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so down below. Hit the notification bell and give this video a thumbs up. The last video I posted was my infertility journey part 1. Today we're going to be talking part 2 of my infertility journey. So without further ado, let's hop right into this video. So in my last video, I left off at me graduating from the program with a reproductive endocrinologist in New York. So he recommended a doctor to me because I was struggling finding an OB in my area, and I really wanted to go with someone who he knew and that he could consult with if ever there was an issue with medication. I scheduled the appointment with a doctor that was in New York, different location, but she was affiliated with Mount Sinai West, which is in New York. So I scheduled my appointment with her at 12 weeks. At the first ultrasound, we had a really nice interaction. I felt like she had my best interest at hand, and I really thought that this was the perfect fit, and it turned out that she was the perfect fit for me. She consulted with a doctor that I had previously seen in New York, and they were basically on the same page about where we were going, moving forward with the pregnancy, the medication I was taking, what would change, what would be the same, and pretty much everything stayed the same. I had the baby aspirin, the Lovenox, and I also had a prenatal that I was taking, which was over the counter, so that wasn't prescribed. So again, I was taking the injections once a day, taking the baby aspirin once a day, and everything was going smooth. So at the appointment, I found out that she had the same birthday as me. She was going through my file and she was like, oh my God, your birthday is December 6th. That's my birthday. And I was like, no way. So in my eyes, I was like, this is meant to be. She was perfect. She ended up being a really good OB. So I was seeing this OB, and come the 20-week scan is when everything kind of went downhill. The 20-week scan is the scan where you find out what the baby's measuring at. They measure every single body part. They make sure the baby's growing on time with the due date, and you know, they let you know at the end, you know, how everything went. So I spoke with a doctor right after the ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech had left the room. The doctor came in and she said to me, you know what, your baby is growing 2 weeks behind. And I didn't really know what to think of it at first. I just was like, well, what do you mean she's not growing on time? Like, what do you mean she's 2 weeks behind? She said, well, like, some of her body parts are measuring on time. Like, I think it was her femur or some other one, I don't want to make it up, but like there were certain body parts that were on time and others that were not, so they were really concerned. So moving forward, I went to see a geneticist. The geneticist went over the same information with me. She basically said it could be a placental issue. The placental issue being that my placenta was insufficient, meaning my placenta was not giving Ayla all of the nutrients and things that she needed. So she was not growing on time due to that. They explored other things to see if my due date was off, but they were really stuck on the fact that like this is just a placental issue, which I had questions about. I said, you know, well, moving forward, will this be an issue for like the next pregnancy? And they explained to me, no, that it's, you know, every placenta is unique to each pregnancy. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. What are we going to do about her measuring 2 weeks behind? So they had recommended that I come in once a week to have scans, and that's what we did. After about 2 weeks, we found out that Ayla was now measuring 3 weeks behind. And so at this point I was like, okay, what's going on? Because now I'm freaking out, now I'm panicking, now I'm really anxious. Like, there were too many things going on in my head. So I asked all of my questions, and they had mentioned to me just growing at such a slow pace that it wasn't really making up the difference for the weeks behind. So again, at this point I was extremely nervous for her, for me, what this meant for her if she did make it out of the womb, what that would mean for her. So we asked all of our questions, and they assured us that you know, we're gonna do everything we can. We're just gonna monitor you. There's really nothing else that we can do at this point. We just have to wait it out. And then when she gets to a viable place in the pregnancy where she can survive out of the womb and things continue to look the same, then they would, you know, take her out of the womb, meaning they would do a C-section. So after we got the news that she was growing 3 weeks behind, then we were told to come in twice a week. I was going to the doctors, I would say like on a Monday and then on a Friday, or like a Wednesday and a Friday, and just to like make sure that she was making those small growths throughout those few days. So we were going in twice a week. The doctors had explained to us that if at any point she had stopped growing, that they were gonna have to do an emergency C-section. So I was preparing myself for that. I had packed a mommy bag, I had all my things in it, and I kept that bag in my trunk because I was driving from New Jersey to New York. There was no way that I was going to be stuck in New York without without being prepared. So I did all of that. I left the bag in my trunk and I was good to go. So at 24 weeks, I had another scan, and that scan showed that she was still lagging. And so at that point they were like, you know what, bed rest. So they placed me on bed rest, and I was on bed rest for, I want to say, maybe 2.5 weeks. And at that point I really wasn't able to work. I pretty much did what they told me, which was don't lift anything heavy, don't climb stairs, and to just really like take it easy. And that's what I did. So I continued to get my scans, and I eventually got to the 26-week scan. And at that scan, they were like, you're not going home today. They were like, you know, Ayla is not progressing and she's growing, but it's very small increments. And so they sent me over to a labor and delivery where they hooked me up to a monitor just to monitor me, and then they admitted me. I called a mod, I let them know the situation. I called my mom, I called my mother-in-law just to let them know I was in the hospital and that I wasn't going home that day. And they pretty much were just like, oh my God, this is happening. The biggest concern for them was that I could go home and have a stillbirth. Because my placenta really wasn't doing much at the time. So if at any point it decided to just like stop working altogether, I could potentially have a stillbirth. So they didn't want to take that risk, and they said, you're gonna be admitted and you can do the rest of your bed rest here at the hospital. So they continued to do the scans while I was on bed rest in the hospital. I stayed there, I think, about 10 days. When I got to the 28th week, they did an ultrasound, and the scan showed that, again, she still was not making much progress. In fact, the blood flow from the placenta to the baby was continuing to get more and more restricted. That was really dangerous for Ayla. And so they were like, you know what, we're gonna take her out. She's gonna have an emergency C-section. Call whoever you need to call because you are going now. And I was freaking out because this is not how I expected my pregnancy to go. My mother-in-law, who was very supportive of me, was about 2 hours away. My mom was still back at home in Boston, and so was my sister, who was like so afraid for me. We did the emergency C-section at 28 weeks. Ayla was born at 1 pound 4 ounces, so she was teeny tiny. And she that was like, that whole experience felt like a blur to me. I felt like they said I was having a C-section. I went in, she came out, and it was like, so it happened so fast that I really didn't get a chance to like take it all in. And the other thing is that I was literally in the delivery room having a C-section by myself. They wouldn't let my mother-in-law in because her COVID test wasn't back, and at that time this was like the first wave of COVID, so it was like running rampant. So they wouldn't let anyone in, if you didn't have the negative test. So I was in this delivery room by myself. I didn't think too much of it at the moment, but looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And now she's here, but yeah, it was really scary. And once the drugs wore off and, you know, I was in the recovery room, my mother-in-law was able to come in and be by my side, which was nice. So yeah, that is my part 2 of my infertility story, and I hope to spread so much more hope to women like myself who are struggling with this issue. Support, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.